All right, so the first thing we are talking about tonight is story beats with script analysis, breaking it into little tiny segments. This stuff comes from studiobinder.com. It's letter D in the syllabus, right there. All right, so every story can be broken down into sections. You have arcs, character arcs. You can break them down and individualize those. Acts, the 3-act structure, 5-act structure, however you structure it. You can break it down into those acts. Individual scenes, of course, can also be taken out of a script and looked at individually and broken down. Why is this scene here? Does it matter to the whole story? Is it pushing the story forward, or is it out of place and we should take it out? And then within those scenes, you have what is called beats. Beats are the smallest structural elements of a story. A story beat is a structural element of a narrative used to mark an intentional shift in tone. They are a way to further break down scenes to get better ideas for actors, directors, cinematographers, production designers, and more, to be able to understand what is happening with each character within each scene. So each moment to moment, what is happening with these people. For script analysis, finding and marking these beats is essential. You want to know what these characters are feeling. They could go into a scene, they could go into a moment in a conversation wanting one thing, but if certain information comes out, or if there's a certain way that the conversation plays out that they weren't expecting, they might shift the way they're trying to come about that information. They might shift their tactics, or they may find out something they didn't know before. And that's going to have some kind of emotional shift in either the way they're talking, an interruption to the conversation, maybe somebody new coming in, and it'll change the tone because maybe the two that were talking at first are a little more close, and then the person's husband or brother or somebody that's kind of with them but not as intimate with those two comes into the scene, and now it's a little bit different because there's a little bit of a different emotional tone there. So if you have a scene with two characters that hate each other but are forced to interact, they will be going into the scene with different wants. One could maybe want to just make it through without it turning into a fight. All right, let me just get through this day. Let me just get through this movie, whatever it may be, without us fighting. The other maybe wants to try to get out of the situation however they can. All right, any excuse I can use, I'm going to try to leave so I don't have to spend time with this other person. But then during the scene, maybe they find out they have something in common. That could mark a story beat, because now maybe their wants and goals have adapted or changed to that new information. Maybe now one wants to learn if maybe they have more in common, see if maybe they could actually be friends. So the way they're approaching their scene, the way they're approaching their dialogue is going to change. So that marks a new beat. This narrative changes the character's goals and wants and marks something new happening. So maybe after several questions, they find out that, oh no, it was only that one thing we had in common. This could mark another story beat because again, something has changed. The goals and wants of each character are again updated and the scene continues. Still the same scene, but now we have 3 different story beats just from that one thing happening. Oh, maybe we can be friends even though I thought I hated them. Oh no, we can't. So they're shifting back and forth on their viewpoint and how they're feeling in those moments. Like in that example, beats can mark a shift in tone between characters. They can signify individual moments that break down the scene. A moment can be extremely short or a bit longer, but it usually keeps the same goal of a character. 2 people looking at each other. All one wants to do is lean in and kiss the other. Whether that kiss happens or not, the moment of the characters looking at each other is its own story beat, as the character's goal is to attempt to kiss the other in that moment, where before that moment, their goal may have just been similar but different. And after they either achieve their goal or fail it, regardless, the tone will shift with each of these moments. That's why when you see a movie that does that, they have the 2 people, they're interacting, and then they get into that almost kissing scene, it feels kind of different. There's a different moment there, different story beat. And then whether that gets interrupted or whether they start kissing, again, the tone kind of shifts. And so you can kind of see how those story beats might play out just based on those examples there. This stuff comes from filmlifestyle.com. It's letter E in the syllabus. Beats move the scene and the story forward. They can be actions taken by a character or may involve dialogue. The story beats function is to push the narrative in some direction and provide more depth for the characters. Film Lifestyle says there's 3 kinds of beats. Exposition beats provide background info for upcoming event or character. So it's kind of a, what is it called whenever you see something that's going to happen later?
Premonition?
Not like that, but in the script, it's like
Deja vu?
I think it starts with an F.
Oh, when you see something that's going to happen, foreshadowing?
Yes, foreshadowing. So it could be something that's foreshadowing something that's going to happen later. And that could be its own emotional beat just because it's kind of separated from the rest. It needs to stand on its own. Confrontation beats introduce conflict to the story by presenting obstacles for the protagonist. Reaction beats detail changes in mood or emotion that is experienced by the characters. So in my previous 2 examples, they would be reaction beats. The kiss or them finding out that they might have stuff in common, that's a reaction, something that they're finding out and then reacting to that, which is changing that story beat within the scene. Film Lifestyle, they're talking about beats from a writing standpoint, but for script analysis, it's much the same. For actors, their main goal is to find out how the characters feel and what they want beat to beat. That way they can be in that character's mindset during the whole scene, and they're not going to play one-note characters. When you hear one note, it's because they're playing the same thing. If they're supposed to be angry at the beginning, they stay angry throughout. All of their dialogue is the same. It's always angry. But in reality, real people, they have moments where they feel betrayed. They feel sorry for themselves. They sort of feel sorry for the other characters sometimes, depending on what is happening. And then they get back to being angry or frustrated or mad, or, it's just their emotions change. It's fluid. It's not set in stone. And so usually when somebody's reacting to things, they're going to be finding out new information and having slight reactions to it, having a little bit of an emotional shift with the way they deliver their next line of dialogue. For directors, they need to know that info too. They need to know what the characters are feeling moment to moment. But they also, on top of that, need to focus on the beats that signify something coming up, like the ones that are foreshadowing something, because these are important elements they'll need to execute properly for the viewers to consciously or subconsciously see or feel what is coming. And that way, if they watch it multiple times, they can see, oh wow, they were foreshadowing that all the way from the beginning, from this little thing in the scene. So directors need to know what the characters are feeling, but they also need to know the script story beats, like the stuff that's going to foreshadow events in the future. This next stuff comes from masterclass.com. It's letter F in the syllabus. Some story beats are subtle, while others are a lot more obvious. Masterclass states that there's 4 kinds of beats. So they also have like sort of different ones from what Film Lifestyle says. So they say there's event story beats. From big and small events, they offer plenty of opportunity for characters to express their views or their desires. There's also realizations, discovering or figuring out something. Realization beats help characters make decisions based on the information that they have. So that's the same as the reaction beats that Film Lifestyle is talking about. Masterclass says there's also resolutions. Resolution beats tend to come early in the script and sometimes can affect everything after it. And then interactions. Interactions can be something small or large that subtly or clearly make the character adapt in that moment or forevermore throughout the whole entire script. This next stuff comes from dramatics.org. It's letter G in the syllabus. Story beats help shape each scene's rhythm. Beats contain distinct beginnings, middles, and ends. So if you looked at each beat individually, you can kind of see where it starts, where it keeps, where the conflict is, or where the like if they're asking a question about new information, that'd be the middle. And then how it does it resolve? How does this story beat end? Does it end abruptly? Does it get do they get the information that they're looking for and then move on to the next subject? Or does somebody just try to shift the subject because they don't want to talk about it? You can look at these individual beats and see that they all have little beginnings, middle, and ends, and kind of break it down into 3-act structures within the beats themselves, if you'd like. But in a beat, in individual beats, characters pursue simple objectives. Beats aren't up in front like acts and scenes in a script. You're not going to see it say, actually in some scripts you will see it say beat, but that's usually only used in theater, I believe. In film scripts, they are used sometimes, but not as often as they used to be. So you usually won't see it, and you'll have to actually find it yourself. And that's part of what script analysis is for. It's finding the change in tone, finding the beats when they start and end, and what those beats entail, what's going on in that beat, moment to moment. But with a scene or with an act, you'll see when it clearly is broken apart, depending on what kind of script you're reading. If it's a multicam shoot, the act will say act 1, act 2, act 3. Otherwise, you'll have to find it yourself in a single camera shoot, or if you're doing a theater play, they'll usually be actually broken up into acts as well. But beats aren't usually there. Beats are something you have to find in each script. You have to look for it. They are discoveries that are made by actors or directors during script analysis, which the process is called beat analysis, looking for the beats within the script. And beat analysis is one of the last things you might do with a script, because once you figure out who these characters are, what their backgrounds are, and what they're actually looking for in their life goal, their super objectives and their objectives in each scene, you can then break that down further and go, what are they looking for in this moment? What are they looking for in that moment? What are they looking for in the moment after that? And how does it all flow together? Or does it have disparity between the two? Are they kind of conflicting with what they were wanting earlier because of something that happened in the scene? And then how do they get back on track to go towards their overall goal again? As a rule, beats shift when a character's motivation or routine changes. And again, Dramatics says there are 3 types of beats. Beats change when any character enters or exits a scene. And they said these are the easiest to find because anytime somebody enters or exits, the emotion changes, the mood changes. I already gave an example, but you can think of plenty of examples. 2 sons talking to each other. The mom walks in. Maybe they're not going to talk the same way as they would when the mom's in, depending on how old they are, or even if age doesn't matter. They're probably still going to talk a bit differently around their mom because maybe their mom doesn't like the kind of humor they use when she's not around. And so when she comes in, there's a bit of an emotional change, or maybe they're talking about their sex lives, having sex with girls or whatever. And then the mom walks in and it's a little more uncomfortable because they don't talk to her about that kind of stuff. So they stop talking about what they're currently talking about and change the subject, have an emotional shift and a beat change. So those are the easiest to find. When anybody comes in or leaves a scene, that can mark a beat. The second type is when other situations shift characters, like change of topics of conversation, discover something new, or the outside world intrudes upon the action in the scene. Something happens unrelated to the scene, which causes them to shift their attention. An earthquake, an explosion happening off in the distance, clearly that's going to cause something to be different. A hurricane coming in, a tornado, it doesn't all have to be weather, but something else is happening outside of the scene that is making them shift their attention and the emotion of the scene, no matter what is happening. And that could be another thing to discover. As characters steer the conversation, with each turn of the wheel, they take the conversation in a new direction, which is a new beat. And then finally, they say the beats change when a character changes the tactics used to achieve an objective. A character may be trying to guilt someone into something. It's not working. So then they try pressuring them into it. That's a beat change because now they're changing their tactic on how they're approaching that conversation. And if that doesn't work, they might result to begging them for that thing and then threatening or etc. With each shift in tactics, a new beat is made because now the emotion is changing. The way they're approaching their dialogue is changing. And so in conclusion, the way those two are interacting is changing just based on how that person is approaching the way they're going to talk to them. Again, these aren't always obvious, and sometimes they can be the hardest things to find. But breaking a story down into beats makes it more manageable and easier to make decisions with stories or actions, especially with performances when you're talking about how the actors are in any given moment. What's my motivation? Well, you came in like this, but you learned that. And so then your motivation is this. And then let them figure out when those moments are. The actor's main goal is to kind of just subconsciously know when to shift their performance based on what is happening in the scene. So it's not like, and then on this word, you start acting mad. And on that word, you start acting sad. Instead, they just play it and let it allow it to kind of just come to them as they go through the scene. Good actors will know, just kind of have a intuition about which part might make them more upset as their character and which part makes them more angry, and then just allow the scene to play through them in that way, instead of trying to do it on a certain word, because that might come off stale and one note. But does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything to add about story beats and script analysis? I sent an exercise out today to everybody after we watched our movie Monday. One of them is based on script analysis. I wrote a short scene. It's not the best, but I think it will give the idea of how to do script analysis for it. And I think story beats was the last part of script analysis that we were going to go through. So take everything that we've learned from script analysis and use that in the exercise to try to come up with all the possibilities that may come up from the script of why the characters are acting the way they are, what could cause them to be this way, and what could have happened in their background that would change how they're interacting within the scene. So that's one of the exercises I sent, but I'll remind everybody at the end of this meeting. All right, next thing we're talking about is marketing plans. This stuff comes from filmdaily.tv. It is letter A in the syllabus. You need to consider the film, the audience, and financial resources available to target a viable marketing strategy and create your marketing plan. You need to include your marketing plan and your film business plan when you present it to investors. Plus, having a marketing plan will help you think about marketing and budget for it during each step of the process. You want to define the goal of your marketing campaign, build your brand, find a highly defined core group of true fans, which would be your target audience or your target market, and reach or engage your audience to sell your film. If you're at the script stage, look for scenes that will get a response from your targeted audience. At pre-production stage, book behind the scenes team as well as cast for shoot days where key art can be created, photo shoots and things like that can happen to get that stuff done. And during production, do interviews with the key team and cast for your electronic press kit later. They say your marketing plan should be 30% of your total budget. I don't know if I agree with that completely, but I do know that larger films will do a 50% added on budget for their marketing sometimes. But for independent budgets, you have to kind of take it out of your overall budget since you most likely won't get additional marketing budget on top of your production budget as an independent film. So you kind of have to take it out from the beginning, which is why it's important to think about it and budget for it before you start. To create a marketing plan, you want to plan your schedule through to the campaign launch. So you want to figure out what am I going to get, what do I need, and when am I going to start? Build a profile of your perfect audience member. Who would be the person who is definitely going to see your film, the ideal person to watch this film? That doesn't mean it's going to be your entire target audience, but who is the most ideal version for your audience member, for who would like it the best, who would definitely come pay to see it, and kind of build your plan around that type of person. You also want to define your genre and keywords that might help you with SEO and with titling and stuff like that to get people interested in coming to see it or looking it up online or finding it, stopping at a post, whatever it may be. You also want to analyze statistics and figure out how many targets can you reach. You want to build your website and create social media accounts. You want to also try to find organizations or social influencers and partners to grow your following and email database. Write relevant articles, press releases, and design the artwork. You want to complete your electronic press kit. And doing all of those things, you'll have a pretty good marketing plan for when and how you're going to distribute these things to help market your film later on. They also gave a few tips. They said start early and keep it consistent throughout the campaign. We were looking at that when we were talking about the film on Monday. They kept that same message going over and over and over again. Use that same core message, even if you're adapting it and changing it throughout, you still should have some kind of core message. What is the main reason somebody should come see this film? Decide on the colors, the font, and handle identity, which is your username. What username are you going to use on your social media? Keep it consistent throughout each platform. And also, what color should you use? How does it demonstrate who you are or what your production company is or what your film is like? The font, how can the style of that match you or your film? And of course, your handle identity, how easy can it be to find you if somebody wants to look you up? And then also, what time is your ideal audience online? Is there a certain time they get on? Do they work a lot? Are they 9-to-5 jobs mostly? Well, maybe you want to do it at 6 to 10 because that's when they're online most. And then they go to bed to wake up the next day. Maybe they're at office jobs and they're actually online more during work hours. When are they online? You want to figure that out as best you can so you can really focus and hone in on the advertising whenever you do it later on. Prepare your marketing message for different target markets. For instance, a comedy can also become a romantic film. If it's a romantic comedy, you could split those in two and focus one of the marketing messages towards the comedy of the movie and aim that more towards the target audience that likes comedy. You can also split off the romantic parts and do it towards a target audience that likes romance movies. And that way you're kind of targeting it to both at once. You also want to build a relationship with your audience as you're going to engage with them in your upcoming films as well, especially if you're trying to use it for multiple films or for a production company. You want to try to build a relationship with them as best you can. Be engaged with them. You can use them for feedback later. You can utilize them in so many things if you just start and work at it and work at growing it, building an audience. Your aim is for a good opening run. When you're marketing your independent film, you want a good opening run. After that, it's mostly going to be up to the critics, what they're saying about the film and how good or bad they think it is. Word of mouth from the people who are watching it, and the media describing the movie or talking about it, where it's premiered and all of that to sustain success. When you're marketing your film, the main thing you're wanting is just a lot of people to show up to the first showing or the premiere. Unless you're doing a distribution strategy where you're going from city to city individually, then it doesn't have to be as much about that. It just has to be about people coming and you still want it to have a good opening run so the next city you go to can be more interested in it. And the theaters can be like, oh, it did well in that city. Let me go ahead and have you in ours then. But I would say it's less of it's going to be less of a spread of word of mouth, because it's more about you advertising to the next city that you're there and that you're coming, and how it's done in the past cities and all of that. But if you're trying to distribute it to multiple cities at once, or you're trying to distribute it nationally, then the opening run is the main thing, because then word of mouth is going to be the main thing that's going to get more people to come see your film. Don't go for numbers when you're marketing. Market it to your core audience, they say.
Numbers can be misleading. You think, oh, I'm getting it to this many people, but if it's not the right people, who cares how many people it is?
Yeah. If it's 10,000 of the wrong kind of people, then it doesn't matter that you reach 10,000 people. But if it's 100 of the right people, then there you go. It's 100 people that might actually come see it. You also want to tailor everything to your audience. What do they like? When are they online? All of those things should be considered, because they're the main people you're trying to get to see it. So what kind of stuff do they like? If you only have one target audience and you do have a romantic comedy, does your target audience like romance or comedy better? Which one should you focus on more, while also showing that it has that other aspect? You don't have to kick out the other one completely, but focusing on one aspect is the main thing. That film we watched the other day, it says it was a comedy, but it focused more on the fact that it was a wholesome family movie. So that was it had both of those aspects, but it focused more on one because it just wanted to target that kind of audience.
And also, if you think about it, the more I was thinking about it, the more I'm like, comedy is subjective, and different kinds of comedy for different kinds of people. So it is actually smarter to, you can, market it as a comedy as well, but market a little more heavily on the family aspect, because that would be a broader audience than, oh, well, yeah, it's a comedy, but it's what kind of comedy? That specific kind of comedy will have like a specific audience. The other kind of comedy will have another specific audience. Family films tend to have a more broader audience, like more people like different kinds of family films, just because it's a family film.
Yeah, and so they chose to focus it on that, which they could have chose to do the other way around, but it might not, or might have worked. We won't know, but what we do know is that the way they did it worked. When they focused on the wholesome family side of things, that did work for them. So you do want to kind of have a main message, and that was their main message. It's an independent film and we want you to support it, and also it's a wholesome family movie, comedy. And comedy was kind of secondary. That's just something to consider. Even though their genre was comedy, that was still their secondary part of their marketing. Your genre doesn't always have to be the main marketing point, unless you feel like that is the main audience you're trying to draw in. You want to consider the marketable elements and how you will use them for which target audience. For example, if you have a car chase scene featured in the trailer and poster, because that's your primary target audience, people who watch action films. But then you might have a table dinner scene to be featured in social marketing to appeal to mothers and family oriented audiences. Both those scenes could be in the same movie. You're just trying to draw in different types of audiences in those instances.
Good example is Deadpool. It was primarily an action film, but it was coming around Valentine's Day. So they did a bunch of advertisements, like making it seem like a romantic comedy.
Which is smart.
Yeah, and it kind of was. There was romance in it, but it was also like, guys, your girl wants to take you to a movie on Valentine's Day. Here's something you'll both enjoy: romance, but also action and violence.
Yeah, and I would say don't differ it so far that it's a complete difference from what your movie is.
Yeah, they
but
knew
your movie,
who the identity Deadpool was. It is very parody-like, so it made sense for that story as well. It wasn't just, oh, this movie is being marketed in two completely different ways, even though it's more one thing than the other. It was like, yeah, we're doing that, but also the nature of Deadpool allows us to do that.
Yeah, and like in the example they gave with the car chase or the dinner table scene, those could be in the same movie. The movie could be an action film, but he could really care about his family. You could say Taken. Taken's it's very action-packed action movie, but it's mainly about him trying to find his daughter, so that's a family aspect to it. And so you could market it in those two ways. I'm not exactly sure how they marketed it, but you could do it like that because those two aspects are in it. So if you're trying to market it to multiple target audiences, you have to figure out who you're marketing it to and what aspect you're going to take from the movie to market it to them. You want to list any potential marketing partners that you're going to target in your marketing plan. Who do I think could team up with me and help me market this further, whether it's a marketing company or it's a kind of brand that is very heavily associated with what you're trying to do or what you're trying to say in your film, or some kind of product or whatever it may be. Who am I going to try to target? Doesn't mean that you will successfully get them. It just means that's who you're planning to try to get in touch with you, to team up. You also want to list similar films and how their audiences relate to your audience. Describe any publicity stunts you have planned, any special event screenings, press events, and etc. You want to plan all that stuff out before you get to it. If you have an idea in your head to do something during your marketing planning, put that in there because you want to plan that out accordingly so you know exactly when you're going to do it and how, and so you can budget for it. Also, you want to describe your online marketing strategy. When and where will you post or advertise and why and how often? Those are all things you need to figure out. Mention any other form of advertising you're planning to do as well. You're planning to advertise through billboards, on buses, flyers hung up everywhere. How might you be trying to advertise this film? List who you intend to or already have attached or interested for media outreach. Why you will target or have targeted them. That's for like your investors or anybody who's trying to team up with you. You can say, yeah, we have this publication that's really interested in doing and covering us when we have our premiere. They've already said that once we have our premiere, they'll come and do it. Or yeah, we have this kind of thing or this person or this publication that told us to send them the script when we're finished with it so they can kind of talk about it a little bit or send us who the casting is, whatever it may be. Or just, yeah, we intend to contact this person, these people, this company or that publication because we really feel like they fit what we're trying to say. And so we're going to try to reach out to them. And that's part of your marketing plan. Newspapers, radio shows, TV talk shows, podcasts, magazines, and other media outlets. Figure out who you're targeting and why you're targeting them, why you think they're a good fit and why you think they would care about covering your story or your film or whatever. Name any festivals that you intend to apply to and why, or why you are choosing to skip festivals if you're not going to enter this festival market or circuit. Also, be prepared to adapt and change your marketing plan as new information comes across. You need to be able to adapt if it's not working or if there was a mistake made, like targeting the wrong audience. Make your primary audience known in your plan, followed by your secondary audience and your tertiary audiences. Even if your film has multiple target audiences, you need to figure out which one is the primary one. Who are we mainly going to market to? And then who is kind of, we believe they'll like the film too, but they're more secondary. We're primarily targeting this specific audience, and here's why. Here's an example of a marketing plan that this movie made. I guess it's called Many Faces. I was just going to kind of scroll through really quickly and show. They gave a table of contents, what's in this. And then they're showing like the overview, the synopsis, audiences and positioning statement. They say who their primary target audience is, their secondary target audience, and tertiary target audience. Females age 30 to 50, mature, like reading between the lines, enjoy stories with little mystery, can relate to or sympathize with this mother-daughter duo. That's their primary target audience. Mothers that have, well, I would say mothers that have a daughter, but they just say females age 30 to 50. Females age 15 to 25 enjoying watching something thrilling that will entertain them, want more from a movie than a rom-com. That's their secondary audience. Tertiary audience is females and males ages 25 to 45. Favorite genre of film is psychological thriller, frequent moviegoer, enjoys trying to figure out what is going to happen next. So you see that they know that males might be interested in it because it's a psychological thriller, but that might be the only kind of male that is interested in it, ones who like psychological thrillers. The rest are really aiming it towards females. Their primary and secondary audiences they know are females, different ages. And their third group is also females, but it's, maybe females with a boyfriend or just males by themselves.
Yeah, obviously some of these go by certain stereotypes, but it's more statistics, like what they get out of these studies and what majority of people enjoy. It's not going to account for every single person ever, but just what they have in their research. And that might change depending on age, depending on region, like country of origin, state, city, that kind of thing.
They also name recent films that are similar to their film Many Faces. They say it's Gone Girl and Girl on the Train. And you can say that you don't think these audiences are what would like this kind of film if you watch it or if you know about the film, which just means that they might have targeted the wrong thing. But
totally happens.
Yeah, that happens a lot. But it's important to try to target it. And that's why we talked about that so much, is because if you can target the right one, then you will have a lot more success than just winging it. Now let's talk about obstacles and opportunities for their film. And they talk about their film festival strategy, which ones they're going to go to and why. The festival kit, their pitch letter to the festivals, press releases, cast and crew bios, more cast and crew bios, their marketing, like the business cards they're going to bring to festivals, their one sheet poster. Man, there's like ads here. There's not even an ad. Anyway, marketing, their DVD case, what that would look like if they made one. Business to business strategy, their distribution strategy, target distributors that they want to try to get in touch with for this film. Consumer strategy, overall strategy, creative advertising, Say like there could be a billboard for it, and they give some reasons and tagline: a bruise may fade, but the pain may last forever. Look at the print ad, the one sheet, the billboard, show like how they might change the look, the key art basically for each. Media strategy and plan. Talk about the market research they've done, their publicity strategy. And that looks like a press release for publicity. Maybe it's I think it's a press release though, not a media advisory. Partnerships, they're saying they're gonna try, or that they have. Well, they say they will partner with CoverGirl to help promote the film. Title of the film and its promotional advertising focuses on a woman's face, just as CoverGirl Cosmetics does. 3 lead characters in the film are all females, as well as most crew members, and the partnership would also interest the primary target audience. The media CoverGirl advertisements will include a mention or image for many faces. Television ad for the cosmetic company will display how CoverGirl Cosmetics was crucial in the appearance of the character in many faces. In return, CoverGirl logo will be present in all media or publicity for the film. In stores where CoverGirl products are sold, there will be an advertisement for many faces next to the cosmetics. Sounds like they already have a deal. I'm not exactly sure, but they're talking about it in either case. Whether they have it or not, they're saying why it would work and what would happen with it if they get it. Or if they already have it, what that deal entails. And they have their internet strategy, which platforms they're going to utilize and where they're going to advertise on. So this is more like where you're going to make posts, and this is where we're going to advertise: Google, Amazon, CNN.
When it's a kid's film, they tend to be a lot more broader. For example, like I remember with the Minions movie,
I think that's
there was everything from like kids commercials and whatever to insurance commercials. Like I think Liberty Mutual had like a Minions thing, and because parents,
Yeah, so that is the last one. So yeah, they just kind of show like an example of their marketing plan and what they plan to utilize, and kind of have all those elements that we were just talking about. Made a little presentation out of it. From bettermarketing.pub, they say, be creative with your advertising. The most basic and important marketing materials for a film marketing campaign. It normally includes posters, trailers, featurettes, and clips. In addition, seasonal creatives such as Chinese New Year and Diwali digital assets are critical to promoting a film at a regional level. We're talking specifically about Sonic the Hedgehog and how it was marketing. So you can see this is like they're coming soon. Doesn't really show too much detail in it. It's a teaser poster, and it's aiming to raise awareness for the film, that there's obviously Sonic the Hedgehog is an iconic character that everyone will know. So you don't really have to show too much to get people interested in a teaser poster like that. And they call this the payoff poster, which has a lot more details and kind of shows a little bit more information about what is happening and some of the characters. Character posters, they also had individual posters for each character and did a separate color scheme for each. Trailers, teaser trailers, we already talked about that. Payoff trailer, the full length feature trailer. Featurettes, video bringing the public a behind the scenes look at the film production process with interviews. So that would be like seeing somebody talk about how they did a certain scene and then showing a clip of a part of that scene while they're talking. That's another promotional tool. Clips from the actual film. They talked about localizing the marketing, and they did that with Chinese New Year and Diwali, and they did these little Chinese New Year creative. I don't know what to call it, logos or something like that. You can see it's in Chinese, and it has like the colors of Chinese New Year, but it also has Sonic in there. Media buy, Blockbuster Films will be mainly pay driven. They have a huge marketing budget to focus on media buying to create a buzz. The purpose of media buying is to find the right place, time, and context to deliver the creative to the target audience and increase film awareness, converting to box office success. Out-of-home ads, advertisements experienced outside of the home, buses, billboards, in train stations, carpets, whatever. You can put it anywhere, wherever there's people, you can put some kind of advertising for your film. It costs a lot of money, which is why it's usually the bigger budgeted films doing this. But I've seen some independent films focus on specific areas or just doing it in one or two sources so that they can have people see it where there's a lot of traffic to try to build awareness of the film. TV, I would say, is kind of more expensive for independent films, but TV advertising, there's also that, obviously. Print advertisements in newspapers, magazines, and other press. Radio ads, a good way to reach local audiences. Certain radio stations that only play in certain areas, you can definitely focus and hone in on it. Online advertisements with social media, emails, websites, streaming, banners, interactive games, video clips, and more. Digital, from search engines like Google, Yahoo, or Bing to social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Digital marketing is the promotion of films via electronic media. And then obviously with social influencers on social media and influencer marketing, like we talked about. And there's publicity. Comprehensive film marketing campaign must include a great PR plan to maximize media coverage and create the buzz that surrounds the release of a film. Create press packs, film synopsis, production notes, cast and crew credits and biographies, stills, and the electronic press kit. Event planning. If you're planning any kind of events, press junkets, talent tours, local screenings, premieres, all of that stuff. Or if you're planning any publicity stunts, I would say, you're planning to pull some kind of publicity stunt, you need to have that planned out before you try it. So that would go in your marketing plan. They'd use, this film, because it went international and it used local dubbing talent. So it used famous people that people are aware of in other countries to dub the voices of the characters.
Oh, actually, that's quite common. I can't speak for every country, but that can be good or bad. I remember in Brazil, it backfired with Tangled because they got a bunch of celebrities to voice some of the characters, and one of them was a TV show host who, no offense to him, but he was absolutely awful and sounded nothing like the role. So that can be good for maybe promotion, but it might backfire if the person isn't good.
And it's also a bit harder to get larger talent even in other countries when you're an independent film. So you might not even have access to that kind of talent.
Yeah.
Which, it's mainly name talent, because there still can be very good talent that's localized and comes in at a lower budget.
Yeah, but what I mean is just be very careful in trying to get a big name if that big name hasn't acted before, or if they know them not to be the best, because that could end up hurting your profit in that country with the whole dubbing and stuff.
If you're able to get international, honestly, that's not really going to be up to you as much. It's going to be up to your sales agent, unless you hopefully have it in your agreement that you can sign off on the thing. But I don't know. You'd have to do a lot of research into that to figure out if you want that or not, basically. And like I said, for a local independent film, it's going to be pretty hard. But if you get to that point, definitely try to do like Priscilla's saying and research it beforehand, because just because somebody's famous doesn't mean they're going to be good in that role
If you
or as
have,
that voice actor or whatever it may be.
yeah, if you have the opportunity to make that part of that decision, just try to see if you can find some research or whatever, because that could end up really hurting your profits in that country if it's not dubbed correctly, if it's just a big name but they have no actual talent, and then people won't see what your movie could actually be.
They also say create press releases for any kind of events you're planning to do. Create press releases that you're going to send out to the media, the press, to try to spread the word about those events. Remember, those are different from media advisories. Media advisories, you're trying to invite the press to come to the event. Press releases, you're trying to get the press to release the story to their readers about the event so that the public comes. Also, advertising in theaters. Undoubtedly, cinemas are the most effective and efficient place to market a film and target moviegoers. Any film-related promotional materials such as one-sheets, trailers, standees, which is like those cardboard cutouts, and merchandise you see in a cinema, that is in theater marketing. In addition, sometimes when you have a very large film, cinemas also create film-themed concessions to promote the films. And they have some sort of deal with the company, in this case Paramount, about how the revenues are split or why they're doing that, and whatever the deal may be. If they're paying them or if they're just taking part of the extra ticket sales or whatever, they're helping promote it even further with that kind of stuff. There's also promotions. Film studios make partnerships with major brands by leveraging collective resources to maximize awareness for both movies and the brand's products. In Sonic's case, it was shoes, Sonic Speed, shoes, athletic running shoes.
That's cute, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they had a lot more than that, but that was one of the best partnerships, they say, because it's a win-win for both brands and the film studio. So in conclusion, they said with the above 6 key elements in the film marketing campaign, Sonic the Hedgehog created a massive box office hit all around the world. And just because you don't have the budget for some of this other stuff doesn't mean you can't learn from what they've done and try to mimic it as best you can by being efficient and resourceful with the budget you have. It's also just good to know all the different ways that you can advertise. If you're only going to go locally, you could try to definitely get into theaters. Limited time, obviously a limited window of them helping promote it. And then if you could work out some kind of deal with your local theaters or pay them a certain amount for that advertising in their theater, you might help bring traffic to your movie.
Theaters, local restaurants too, depending, if there's a lot of tourists or if there's a lot of locals that go there.
Yeah. If you're just going to go like city to city distributing it, then you can definitely focus more on the local places, the local things, and see where maybe your target audience goes here or there. And obviously part of your subset or tertiary market would be moviegoers, just moviegoers in general. That'd be one of your tertiary markets, local moviegoers. So local theaters might help you gain more audience members and traction in that city. If you're going national, then it's a bit harder to do that kind of advertising on a smaller budget. But if you're doing national, you might also have distribution already, which means they might be handling part or all of the marketing for you anyway. Besides that, does anybody have anything, questions, comments, or anything to add about marketing plans? Main thing is just to have one.
I do.
Oh yeah, go
I have
ahead.
a question. Yeah, it goes back to the billboard. Now, so if you're just about to release it, when a billboard help?
You said, wouldn't a billboard help?
Yeah.
It could, but it depends on
Depends on how big your title is, the image that you're using, the location especially of where that billboard would be, the kind of people driving by it, how much information you want to put on that billboard, because like if people are driving by it, they're not going to be able to read, you know. It has to be something that's eye-catching, I would say. Otherwise, if it's just a generic name for a movie or like a regular image, people are not going to be as interested.
If you're going local and you're doing it city by city, I would say it could definitely help if you have the budget for it. But also, it's something worth to note that you can't target it toward anyone. You don't know if that person driving on the road is a moviegoer at all. You also don't know if they're anything close to your target audience. So billboards do help, but I would say they're not the best way for independent filmmakers to target their audiences.
The more specific you can target, the better, because that way you're targeting the people you want.
But I would say it's definitely worth it if you have the budget for it, because in addition to the other targeted marketing that you do, a billboard will just help get its awareness out for the city or awareness out for the nation if you're able to do it across different billboards across the nation.
But with billboards, location and sizing is very crucial. So that's also something that's complicated and can cost you a lot of money. And like you have to, at the end of the day, it's all about your budget and seeing like, is this in the budget and would it be worth it allocating some money into this instead of something else that might target better, more specific, or, you know, that kind of thing. Sometimes podcasts, I've listened to podcasts where they advertise movies, radio shows, podcasts where they advertise independent films, local films, big blockbuster films and TV shows.
Yeah, and you have to think, is it better for your advertising if I use the radio station that I feel like my target audience listens to? Because then they're in the car and they're still hearing about it, compared to just seeing it on a billboard. So there's different takes to it and there's no right answer. I would just say, in my opinion, I think because a billboard requires more steps, it is a bit harder, especially for independent filmmakers, to take advantage of it because it's expensive. Yeah, you'll get a lot of eyes on it, but they might not be the right eyes. They might not be your target audience. They might not even be people who like movies, because there's people out there that don't even like movies. They like TV shows, or they don't even like watching stuff at all. And then there's also the fact that when they're seeing a billboard, they have to like it enough to remember it. If you're using just the billboard, they have to look at the billboard, remember it, remember what the website or the name of the movie is, get home, look it up, and then buy a ticket or remember it for later to buy a ticket.
That might be asking a lot.
Which is why billboards are usually used additionally with the rest of the marketing, so that they can just be another way for people to either remember it or for them to see it. Then they see it online on an ad later and you go, oh yeah, I saw that, it looked interesting, let me check this out, because they're seeing it multiple times.
One thing I heard about billboards that people say is like, if you're going to use a billboard, try doing something dynamic, eye-catching, and that doesn't have a lot of wording, because they're not going to read all the information about your film or know everything about your film from that billboard, because it's going to be something that's going to go by quick. So I remember, I forgot the TV show, I think it was Wheel of Time. I remember we were in New York City and there was this billboard. Obviously we can't afford like 3D billboards, but I remember there was like a hand coming out or something like that. And I thought that was so cool, and I didn't even know what it was.
It was kind of like these with the heads.
Yeah, I didn't even know what it was, but I was like, that's cool and different. And it was it was for the Wheel of Time, and it showed. So this Sonic one, for example, like it's popping out at you because you can see that he's running, which is interesting and dynamic. So if you're gonna make a billboard, make sure that it's eye-catching and has something to where they could look it up, obviously, because the image alone.
It also just has like a little tagline, chillin' versus villain.
Yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog in big bold letters, and then in theaters and Dolby Cinema, and then they use the date as larger than in theaters because it's a movie, so they don't have to say that too much. But But you can see how that's not the only thing they're using. They're also using tons of other stuff.
But basically the point is, if you're doing a billboard, make sure to focus on the right things on that billboard that will keep it in people's memories and draw their eyes. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I'd say, because you want them to remember it. And the main thing about billboards, like I said, the way I see them anyway, is that you see it and then you might forget about it, but you've already seen that thing. And then you see it again later on social media or online or in a magazine or wherever you see it. And you remember it and you get more interested in it because you've seen it in multiple places.
Yeah, in my
That's part of
experience,
advertising, which is why people say sometimes you want to advertise on multiple sites, just because when somebody sees it over and over again, they're more likely to click it or buy a ticket to it just because they keep seeing it. And if they're interested in it, that doesn't automatically mean they're going to go right to it and buy a ticket. It just means that they're like, oh, that looks cool. And then they forget about it.
Yeah,
And then they see it again and again. And they're like, oh yeah, let me keep reminding myself to get it until I finally do.
in my experience, the thing that has made me actually look up something or be like, okay, I really should look this up, or oh yeah, that thing, is after seeing it 2 or 3 times. Like the reason that the Wheel of Time caught my attention, yeah, it was a cool billboard, a cool ad, but also because I had already heard about it. So I was like, that's, oh yeah, it's that show, it's unique, so I feel like in my personal experience, billboards or like ads at the top of things, they're much more effective once you've already seen it somewhere else, or after you see it somewhere else again. Because then it's like, oh right, that thing,
Everywhere.
and then it just piques your curiosity even more, like, oh, I've seen it in multiple places. So
I would say billboards definitely add legitimacy to independent films. Because people already have this stigma most of the time where they're like, oh, it's an independent film, it probably sucks. And so if they see that you have enough money, it's just something psychological that I've heard, that if they see that you have enough money to do it on a billboard, or they see it on a bus station stop.
I've seen one before, and it was actually a decent.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, that looks pretty good. Like it doesn't look as bad as all these other independent films. Because when you hear independent film, you have to lump all of them together, and some of them are made very bad, and some of them are really resourceful and use what they can to maximize what they have. So yeah, that's just I don't know. Did that answer your question at all?
No, it did because it's because I'd seen one before, and it was, and it caught my eye because it was a real nice billboard. But that depends, because that's just my liking what I saw. It was really like sleek, and I'm like, wow, I was more impressed.
Let me ask you, did you end up watching the film?
No.
That's what I'm saying, so like there's that as well. Like it looks really nice, it looks really cool. It may have even interested you, but it didn't get you to do the end goal of buying a ticket to that thing.
As opposed to if you see a poster at a movie theater while you're waiting in line, or an ad for it on social media, you will pay attention for it for longer because you're not just passing by it. It might be more effective at making you actually look it up and maybe seeing it.
Right.
Might.
So yeah, that's all. Like that's what I'd have to say on that. Like there's no right or wrong answer to it, but those are just our thoughts on it.
Right.
But I would say there's just, with the marketing plan, the main thing is just to have a marketing plan. Figure it out before you start your movie so that you can have a goal of how you're going to market this, because that is going to be the most important thing after you're done with post-production. Distribution and marketing. Because those are two things that a lot of independent filmmakers don't even think about. And one reason is because school doesn't really teach it to filmmakers, because it's a separate skill set. And you can go to school for marketing, you can go to school to learn about distribution,
but it's not the main focus.
Not from what I mean, yeah, probably, but from what I've heard, sometimes they're like, we never even really talked about this stuff because it's just a different thing. And independent filmmakers, they have to kind of be their own marketers. So it is important to know for independent filmmakers, but what school usually does is teach you to be collaborative and to work with others and kind of teaching you how to be in the industry more than being a what is it called, freelance filmographer or whatever. So it's not saying school sucks. I'm just saying there's certain things that aren't really told, and it makes less people aware of it because it's just a different skill set, but it's one that filmmakers have to learn and utilize as best as they can. So they don't, nobody's going to know that you even have a film.
And most people go to film school to learn about film, and not necessarily.
It would take longer to learn it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if you're getting a 2-year degree, you can't cram so much into it. So
but yeah, like I always say this because at the end of the day, there's no use in you putting your blood, sweat, and tears, your hard-earned money, your dedication, your time into this project, and then as like it's over and you're like, crap, how do we market it? Oh, well, we can just pay for a few ads on here, and
sometimes you don't even have the budget for that if you don't plan for it.
yeah, that too. But
You're out of funding by the time you get done with the film. Hopefully you had enough budget for the post-production.
or you
Yeah,
end up, oh crap, right,
right.
let's just do this.
Right,
And then you end up
right.
basically in debt because you're like, oh crap, this is more expensive than I thought. And then you do it. It's like, oh,
You can
it's
use it
not
for
even
other
effective.
resources.
It's not even
What'd you say
effective.
again?
No, because you can use it for other resources, like you know, what you would use for the billboard.
Yeah,
I
you
can
can
use
you
for
can set
other
it aside and utilize it for something that you think will benefit your film later on in the long run
Yeah, and
with the
that would be,
marketing.
and that would be my point. It's like if you don't think about advertising and you keep it as an afterthought, not only will it be sloppy, rushed, maybe you won't even have the budget for it. You might end up in debt or without money for it, but you might do it in whatever way where it's not even effective because there was no planning, there was no strategy,
There's no research into your target audience.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
And then it just wasted. It's a project wasted because people aren't going to be able to see it as much because that whole part was completely overlooked. And you went through all that trouble for, major loss.
Years of work and money and all that gone just because, I mean, it's not just because, but years of work and money gone without thinking of how am I going to get this to people? How am I going to get this movie seen and people interested in watching it? And then nobody watches it. And I've seen a lot of filmmakers just completely break down from that because they put all their hard work into it. And they just have this feeling like people will like it because of all the hard work they'll see that's gone into it. But there's no way to spread that around. There's no way to tell anybody how much hard work went into it if you don't have a way to reach them.
Not enough people will see the hard work that you put into it because
they don't even know it exists.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's the marketing and distribution are huge, and a lot of things are overlooked from independent filmmakers, which is why we're touching on it so much this semester.
Heck, not just independent filmmakers. We see huge studios make this mistake too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be taken a little more into consideration.
It is hard. It's a lot of work, and it is hard and you might not nail down the right one. So it is difficult, especially if that happens, but then you have to be able to adapt and change what you're doing and approach it differently to be able to successfully get it out there to the right audience.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
All right, moving on from that, we're talking about a sales sheet, also known as a sell sheet, and also known as a one sheet. This stuff comes from infernofilm.com. It's letter I in the syllabus. Sales sheets, sometimes called one sheets, one pagers, sales sheets, and etc., are typically 8.5 by 11 inch on glossy stock paper. They say the front should resemble a movie poster and include the key art, which is, the poster, basically. The front should be full color and not printed at home, as the colors you want to be precise and you want it to pop out, and home printers aren't as utilized for that type of artwork. The artwork should be good enough that it attracts people up to 20 feet away. Test this by hanging it and going back 20 feet. Does it grab your attention if you're just glancing over it? The back can be monochrome or color. If it's not color, you typically want black on white. So you want black text over white paper. On the back, it should be a still or two of, things from the movie's production or things from the scenes. High quality professional stills, not just things grabbed from the footage. Brief synopsis, quotes from reviews and awards won, and contact info. If you have a sales agent, you should put their contact info in place of or additionally to your own. That way they can contact the sales agent of whatever that movie is. Or they can contact you directly if you'd like them to do that as well. Other people say a film sales sheet is the poster, and then others say it's just a one-sided document with the information about the film, like the log line, synopsis, 3-act structure, and the contact info. So Inferno Films version is a combination of the two. It's kind of like this, actually. From what I can tell, it says like it shows what the film's poster is on the front, has the tagline, then it also has the title again on the back with what kind of movie it is, how long it is, some of the quotes and things from that, where you can find them, where you can watch the trailer. So it's kind of like a combination. It's basically the one that Inferno Film is talking about. But other people say, it's just for film, it's just going to be one or the other. And sometimes that's true, depending on the movie. But I believe Inferno Film is a sales agent themselves. So they were trying to tell the people who are their clients what they need from them. And they were saying they want this kind of thing with the information on the back and the poster on the front. You always want to ask your sales agent, producer rep, distributor, or whoever you have or you're trying to meet with, what kind of one pager, sales sheet, or sales sheet they want if they request them. Remember, those are all basically the same thing. They're just different names for the same document. Like I said, Inferno Film is an agent, or at least they say that on their site. And they want that double-sided one. Info on the back, poster on the front. Some other sales agents might just want the information with maybe a few stills, kind of like what's on here. Or they might just want the poster itself. I look at it kind of like an actor's headshot with their resume on the back. And like they said, it could be in color and it can match the poster, or it can be black text over white paper. And if you guys have ever seen an actor's headshot, they just have the big headshot in the front, you turn it on the back, and you can see their resume with what they've worked on and all the rest. Other businesses use sales sheets or sales sheets as well, and you can gain some kind of, you can like kind of get an idea of how it goes. The reason why films use the poster is because that's the main draw of the film. Other things like products will show the product. They'll have some things about it. If they have like a mascot, they'll utilize them. They'll show the barcodes and they'll show some stuff about the product on both sides. They might talk about a business and say like what their main points of this business is and what you'll learn or what you'll do or what this business is for, what it stands for, and why you should be interested in it. Or like I said, it also might be products, and it might be talking about what it is. And based on what they're trying to do, it might be talking about if it's healthy, if it's this, if it's that, how tasty it is, how different it is, or whatever. It could be anything. But for products and things like that, they're showcasing that thing. It's called a sales sheet because you're trying to attract people to buy it so that it gets sold. And for film, posters is what mainly does that. It brings people in, it draws them into the movie, makes them look into it a bit more, maybe, and then they end up buying tickets, hopefully. Most of the videos in the syllabus were for normal businesses or certain products as well. So while film will have a different way of doing it, it is still good to know and see comparisons to other companies and products. Like I said, for film, the film is the product and the company is the creators or production company behind the film. This document is also used as a leave behind for pitches if it has the info about the film on it, which is why I think it's more than just your poster, because it's either a mini pitch deck on one page, which is called a one sheet, or it's a poster with some stills and a mini pitch deck on the back. Again, one sheet. So it's people usually leave it behind because it usually has some information about the film after you give your pitch. I actually talked about this. It leaves the poster behind, the key art, so that they can remember that and remember the details of the film and what the main points are. And then you leave it behind with them so that if they like the pitch, they can quickly remember what that pitch was without having to contact you again. You want it to be a speedy process. Other than that, you might just hang these up around places, or you might try to get people's attention or try to get partnerships through these kinds of things and hand these out, send them through email or whatever to get people interested. That is what those all mean, which is why we hear one sheet when we're talking about the posters that appear at the theaters. They have a lot of details and information on them in the front about the credits, who's in it, showing the key art, the tagline, and a lot of other stuff like that, which is why it's a one sheet, because it's giving more information. It gives information about where you can look them up online, like their websites, or follow them on Facebook or tweet them or whatever it might be. So it's more than just the poster itself, more than just the key art. It is information about the film where you can look into it further if you like. And it's to draw people in to go look at it, look over the whole thing, find that information, and then look into the film. And so it's to sell tickets at the theater. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything to add about sales sheets, one sheets, one pagers, and all the other names for the same document?
It's annoying that there's so many names for the same thing.
It is. And I would say one pagers, that's the only one I feel like would be, we want this information on the back more than the poster. One sheet, I would automatically assume it's the theater poster that you see. And then all the rest, you just have to ask, because yeah,
And I'm sure there must be
they probably have different ideas for what it is.
Yeah, there's probably like a difference in either the region, which region uses what, or this one has more detail than this one, or there's something,
This one includes the website, this one doesn't.
Yeah.
It could be very minor like that, but from what I found is it's all basically the same thing, which is why you just need to ask, because everybody might have a different idea of what they're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, so like I said, after Monday, I sent out I told you guys I would send out the exercise information, and I did that earlier today. It's going to be script analysis exercise. Do script analysis on one scene that I quickly wrote, and everybody comes to the conclusions on their own with the possibilities about what is happening in that scene, who these people are, how they connect, what their background might be, and whatever other information you can find from the clues that's in that scene alone. Obviously, it's not the whole script, so you can't really go back and find different clues in the script like you would do in a normal script analysis. But for a scene analysis, you can still try to find as much information as you can based on that scene alone, depending on how much information is in there. We're doing that. It's going to be due December 1st, Thursday, December 1st. So you got plenty of time to do it. But also, there's the website creation exercise. We talked about websites and how important they are to be able to start building an audience or make you look as more of a professional, more legitimate, and how to kind of set them up. I gave some of those tips with the email that I sent out, and a few of the companies that are common for independent creators and small businesses and stuff like that. And and some other information. If anybody has any questions or anything, go ahead and feel free to contact me or Priscilla and ask. The main idea for the website creation exercise is to create a website just to get accustomed to how it's done. And you can create it for a film idea or a film you already have. You can create it for you as a creator, or you can create it for your production company if you have one, or if you want to make one. Just keep in mind that all of those are going to be a bit different based on what it is for. But you mainly want to look into like the layout, the color, the fonts, sizing, and a bunch of other stuff. So I sent all that in the email. That's going to also be due December 1st. So again, there's plenty of time to do that, and you can do it for free completely. You can just get a free builder with free hosting and a free domain name. They're just going to advertise on your site. So if you're trying to actually use this exercise to create a site that you're going to use later, you can decide if you want to do it for free and then upgrade later, or you can just decide to pay now to kind of figure it out as you go, if you would want to do that. Otherwise, there is a way to do it for free, so just keep that in mind. Also, those are 2 exercises that are going to be due December 1st, but after we watch our second movie this semester in a few weeks, there's going to be 2 more exercises that we're doing that are also going to be due December 1st. So the reason why I'm doing it like this is so everything can be done on the same day, and we have plenty of time leading up to it to get these exercises done. So just keep that in mind. There's going to be 2 more, so don't wait till the last moment, or you probably won't be able to get to them if you want to take part in all of these. Other than that, on Monday, we're going to talk about what people are saying poster. Not sure if that's the actual name for it, but that's what I'm calling it. It's basically just that poster where you see like a bunch of different quotes from different articles and different people of significance that are saying good things about the film. We'll also talk about viral marketing and publicity stunts. And this doesn't really have to do with this semester per se, but it's something that I left out of other semesters. Virtual sets, that's something new that's coming around. We've seen it a lot. Unreal, and with the Unreal Engine being utilized to have these digital screens that are kind of like CGI in the background that are matched to the footage and the camera, so that whenever it turns inside of that CGI world as if you were inside of a video game. And so we'll talk about that as well, and how that's coming along and what it might mean for the future. But other than that, I think that is everything for tonight. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything to add before we say goodnight?
Yes, Professor. Would we be able to make up these assignments?
What'd you say?
I said, will we be able to make up these assignments to get partial credit?
Oh my gosh.
Sounded like extra credit.
We never force anyone to do the like exercises, just if they want to, for like learning exercises and fun anyway. So.
I'm joking.
I know
No,
you're
we don't.
joking. I'm just making that clear to everyone so they don't, because not everyone knows. So just, so they know that it's not obligatory or anything.
I think everybody in our group's been here enough to know.
Yeah, but it's always a good reminder.
We'll shame you to oblivion and back if you don't do these.
Yeah.
I
What
think
do
you
you
guys
mean you didn't do it?
We gave you 2.5 months.
Actually, it's more like 1.5.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's already close to
Yeah.
7.
One of the members in my script writing group, she's taking a class. It's not a college course, but I think it's like a script writing class. But it's like $1,300
Oof.
Yikes.
via Zoom.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, where
He's
did I
some
go?
ambitious professor.
Where
Like, he
did-
must have some.
Where did I go wrong?
You should have taught it on there.
That's all you need to do.
Oh, he must have some like very strong credentials, or
Tell me about
No,
it.
probably not. It's probably just at some
be
kind of.
very good
just-
at convincing people with some Jedi mind tricks. I don't know.
Yeah, because you guys struggle to get people to do this for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but
I always
sense.
wonder if it's like, if we would have charged, would we have gotten
Wow.
more?
Don't tell
No, but
anybody.
that makes sense because everything that comes free,
Mhm.
like everything that people have to pay for, they feel like they have a bigger responsibility or they have a bigger, oh, I'm
Yeah.
paying for this, I have to. But to be
Which is
fair,
don't make
we.
I mean, that kind of makes sense actually, because if
Yeah.
I think about it from a streaming service standpoint, when I pay for a streaming service, I'm
I
like,
try to
oh, I
watch
need
it.
to watch this stuff, even though I don't really feel like it. I need to watch through it because I'm paying for it. Whereas if I wasn't, I would just feel like, screw it. I don't
It's
feel like watching
there.
that thing. I'll just
Yeah.
leave it in my list.
It's there. We'll watch it at some point.
It's still annoying how that is for everybody though.
So, because it doesn't cost anything or cost as much, the value of it has been completely taken away from
And then
it.
people
Right.
complain about it, but at the end of the day, that's how our brain works. It's like if there's no cost, we don't feel like it's worth doing, like it's crazy, but that's how life works, honestly. Like if things come easy to us, we don't value them as much. We don't try to do them as much.
I would say depending on what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, obviously, but
If I get a
it's
free
just kinda-
car, I'm gonna value that.
Wow.
Well,
For those
I mean, if you
who
were a
didn't
millionaire and you
complete-
got a free car, you wouldn't care. That's
For
the
those
thing.
who didn't complete school, this is like a treasure.
Thanks, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like you guys literally go and do the homework for us. You're just like,
All right.
Right. Here's our findings, guys.
The best kept secret, like so far, like with me, sharing it. I'm sorry. It's the best kept secret, but
Yeah, I mean, there's no point now. We're almost done.
In a way, right?
But yeah, exactly. Like, hey, oh well. Honestly, we're kind of glad anyway. Like, the more people that were coming in, it was like getting a bit harder to communicate with everybody. So, the core group that we kept, I think I like it.
Yeah, both like in person and not. I feel like it's much easier, and also because at the end of the day, there are people that want to do this and that want to learn and figure their stuff out. I think a few is better than having a bunch and having to constantly like, hey, are you doing this? Hey, because like if you don't want to do it, we're here to learn. Like this is for us more than anything. So it just takes the pressure off of us a little bit because it's like, you want to do this? Great. If you don't, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think this is like a great thing. And like the screenwriting group you're doing, Brian, for people who don't know and want to try it before jumping into school and then figuring out that they don't like it.
Oh yeah, that is
That's
so
the worst.
important because the amount of people that we've met that went to film school and said, most of my class just gave up or went into something else and now their entire degree and the money they spent and the time they spent,
Yeah.
Now they're a barista.
I'm one of them. I said that too.
What?
I said I'm one of those people that told y'all like
Oh yeah.
huge percentage of my even my graduating class, like a lot of, hey man, what you up to? Oh, nothing. I just got this office gig, what?
Yeah.
Spent all that film school just to go work. Or the big one. I think the trend is real estate. That's what everybody gets into. I do real estate. Like,
well, have you seen the market lately? You can't believe it.
Right.
No, but I mean, it makes sense because as we go on, we see how much actually goes into something like this, unless you're just going to join the industry and do, work your way up the ladder like that.
I say this all the time.
It's a very different realm to be in an independent space, I would say.
I say this all the time, and sometimes I'm afraid of coming off a little bitchy, but I really do feel that with industries like this that are more like creative, somewhat artistic and that kind of thing, a lot of people tend to have rose-colored glasses where they think, oh, I love this, so it'll just be fun. And there's no
Get rich quick
work to it. Or
that too, if they want to just get rich or famous, they like that. But there's also the aspect of just, oh, I really like my story and I know everyone else will, and they don't do any work to find out if that's true or how to get it out to people or any of that other stuff.
Or we think
to put in the work, or just filming it itself when they find out how much work goes into filming and
a lot.
Planning
each shot. It's just,
But people think that it's not just like every other job in the world where there's good parts and bad parts. where there's a hierarchy that you have to climb up. You have to start from somewhere. Like, it's not, oh, I made the next blockbuster and now I'm rich and famous because of it. It's not always like that. And I feel like we tend to romanticize these certain jobs a bit. And when we actually go into them and see how much actually goes into it, a lot of people lose passion for it, or it isn't what they thought it would be.
Same thing happens in the music industry when people think, oh, I'd love to sing or I'd love to play guitar, but then they see how many times they have to practice and how much effort they have to
And
put
how much
in.
bureaucracy it is. It's not just
That
about
too.
passion, it's about sales and about what is in right now, and
Contacting people to help promote your thing and help publish it.
so much goes into it. So I feel like it is good for people to have these little study groups and have these little ideas of, hey, this is what this is like. If you still want to go into this, great. But it's it could be a preparatory, like something to prepare you for it, or it can just be something to be like, oh wow, this is still fun as a hobby and I still love it, but I definitely don't think I want this as a career.
Yeah, I also think people are also turned off by the unorthodox motion of this industry. Like, you don't submit resumes or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I think people,
yeah, like the way it's done is like very different.
It's very
yeah,
difficult.
there's no application, no resumes, kind of just built on, a faith. You're real and just faith. Like, I hope he's like,
You gotta work in order to get work. Is
yeah,
basically
exactly.
You got to keep at it in order to keep at it.
Yeah.
So you gotta have something to show for it.
But yeah, I agree. Plus the schedules and stuff that people don't realize. Sometimes you'll be on set 12 hours, 14 hours a day, depending on how much time crunch there is. And it's, 6 days a week sometimes. And so it's just like no life outside of it for people in the industry.
And we heard that from a lot of people too.
Or just how long people don't understand how long you could be working on a project. Like, oh, I haven't seen your thing. You talked about it a while ago. It's like, yeah, well, we're working on it. It's just, there's so many problems coming up and we're working through those to get it
Especially
done.
when you're an independent, yeah. But
Or I'm writing it, trying to pitch it to people. And it's like, oh, I haven't heard from it for 2 years. What happened to that script? Oh, I'm still trying to do stuff with it. I'm just reworking it and pitching it again. And, there's tons of stuff that people don't understand.
and yeah, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, you just do this one job and then you don't work for a few months, but you make so much money that you live off of that. For you to get to that point, sometimes it takes a long time. For most people that we've talked about, that we've talked with, that we've heard of, they say, like, especially when you're starting out, you can't afford to take breaks. It's one work after the other, after the other, after the other, depending on the area of, like, the part of filmmaking you're at as well. Like, it's very grueling, and you need to be able to be prepared for that as well. Even if it is just, a few months and then you take breaks, those few months are going to be intense, like nonstop working all the time, no breaks, intense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah. Then you also, like, you got the people that, oh, I want to be a PA, so I can learn everything I possibly can and work my way up the industry. But it's like, there's like two types of PAs: the ones that I want on set, and then the ones that I'm like, well, yeah. It's just like, I go on Facebook.
I mean, because they're trying to like take over for other jobs, or they don't really want to do
No,
PA work?
not even like, those are the ones that I want. The ones that are trying to do other shit. Like, that's what I'm looking for.
Trying to learn and trying to...
Yeah, but recently, like this last production I just worked on, the one I'm producing, I hired 2 PAs, and like, I turn around and it's me and the cinematographer, and we're like, setting and shooting shit up, and then I turn around and I see like the PAs just kind of just chilling. And I'm not one of those guys like, get off your ass or anything like that. But it's like, if I go on Facebook and I see you post like photos of like anything on set, and I'm like, when did you have time to do that? That is the question. Like, if you have time to take photos, that is because I never have time to take photos. I tell people all the time, I'm like, yo, any photo you ever see me in, I'm always like holding the camera, holding something. Like, you know, I'm always busy. I'm never like, and you, like, if you're ever on set, like a real legit set, like there's just no time. That's why they hire people for behind the scenes, because there's no time in the day for it. So if you find yourself like
And there shouldn't
posting
be,
your behind the
because if
scenes,
there is, then you're doing something wrong, because something's getting overlooked.
especially as a PA, and I'm not being that guy, but I'm just saying, like, I noticed that that's a trend now. With me, like, if I were still doing the PA thing, bro, like, I'd be all over the place. Like, what are you guys doing? What's this? What's that? You learn stuff. Like, I had a couple PAs
asking questions, figuring out different things, different aspects. Oh, just making connections with people too. Oh, hey, well, how long have you been here? How long have you done this?
Yeah, because the last guy on the couple shoots before this one, the PAs I hired, they were like all over it, and I was like, oh, you guys are so dope that, like, I want you guys to like progress, and next thing you know, next time I bring you back, I'll bring you back as grips and not PAs. You know, that's my thing, and that's how that works. Like, it's that easy, you know. And we made that move, and I was telling him, I was like, yo, this cinematographer, this guy right here, he works for NBC. Like, he's, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's a legit cinematographer. He's not like, you know, this is my hobby. This guy actually has, and he has like everything. Like, he has all kinds of anything you name it, monitors, cameras, anything. And so it's like, that's the guy you want to work with. That's the guy. If you want to go on set, be a PA and learn, that's the guy you want to learn from. But you know, every time you get a different set of PAs, is always a different type of attitude. So you know how that goes. But, yeah, it's kind of just the same with this.
There we are.
Yeah.
You stop?
Well, I don't know. I was just wondering.
I'll stop recording.
No, I was just wondering because I didn't know if we